Hello? Hello? Hello, hello? Hello, hello? And welcome to another episode of Not Game. I'm Not, your host, and this is the second day in a row I've been streaming. Holy moly. That's crazy. Alright, we might break the curse. We might break the curse at this rate. Let's go. Right? Oh, not this. Today, we will be doing a little bit more of, I want to say, outlining the framework for Not Game. So, I have Not Console up right now, but I think I'll go right ahead into, I want to say, global, and review these before going forward. So, alright. I'm going to actually do a little bit more of I think I'm going to do a little bit more of a broader review. Yeah. Because while this addresses skills, this actually doesn't address the combat that happens. Like, how does combat work exactly, right? That's sort of a core function of the game. And that means I need to go ahead and, yeah, we might as well do this then. Open up a new, well, let's create a new file. Wait, did I say file? No, new file. And let's make this our battle file. And we also need a battle.c. So within our battle here, dork. I just started this stream. I can't believe the first thing you say is dork. Not even hello. Not hi. Not this. It's dork. Come on. Oh. So yes, battle. Right, the battle scenario here. What does it look like, right? And I'm thinking, if we go, I think probably battle.h, maybe the header, maybe. If we put it here. We can go ahead and well, yeah, okay, you know what, that's fine. I'm overthinking things. Let's do a really fat comment block. Oh, I can't stay because it's late for me, but it's so cool that you're programming in C++. I've only started learning it from Python, and it's so fun. I'll watch the VOD later. Oh, thank you! Yes, please enjoy the VOD. And, learning programming from Python is Honestly, Python is a really like it's a high level language. It's a good place to start. Uh, but if you're going into that learning about programming Python, I also would recommend that you study C++ as well. I think. Um, Although what I'm doing right now, right here, really just isn't anything really different compared to what you might be doing in Python. These are relatively basic concepts and constructs, just a little bit of different syntax. But if you go a little bit deeper into, I think, C++, it does, I do believe it does help you build a better foundation for programming compared to how Python does it. I mean, I guess it also depends on like what you really want to specialize in, because Python is a scripting language, and I'm pretty sure what is C++ for again? Let me check. I need to make sure. What is C++ commonly used for? I want to say it's used for like more applications, right? Okay, yeah. It's for actual like software, embedded systems, game development. Yeah, and high performance applications. Yeah. So it does depend on like what you want to go into. Programming is just programming. I mean, yeah, you can learn like the basics of programming through Python just. And if you really want to go into like embedded system stuff, that's where we go into like funny like C programming language, just C, not C++, not C sharp, just C. Yeah, it's C is a high level programming language, but it's lower. It's much closer to assembly, which makes it ideal for embedded systems. Oh, but I digress. So with the battle here, the battle form, I'm thinking, ah, let's see, battle. Okay, so battle begins, right? Battle starts. We need to start a battle, and then when a battle happens, we want to initialize an instance of our monster, right? So of a player monster to initialize an instance of enemy monster. And then within this battle is 3, right? While true. It's not going to be in a while loop because the only way a battle ends is if you forfeit or if your hit points drop to 0. So hit points. So I guess we can do something like, well, fight is true. Or we can just say fight. Well, fight. Do stuff. Combat loop, right? This is our combat loop. This is our main gameplay loop. So, I guess somewhere in here we're also. I can probably just do something like this. So this is initializing things. Initialize stuff. So within that we have player monster, we have enemy monster, we have fight that equal to true. So we do something like that. And then we have our combat loop here, right? I can probably call this combat loop right here. Actually do something like while fight, right? And so while fight is true. So a while loop happens when the statement condition here is true. So this simply checks this boolean fight equal to true. And so we'll just keep on doing whatever we need to do underneath that. And so when fight is set to false, then the loop ends. So we have a menu select, right? Player select options, player select options. It's skill 1, skill 2, skill 3. We could probably put this into skills. Right, so underneath we have skills. You can select skills. You can select skills, you can select the actual skill 1, skill 2, skill 3. And then you can also go status, right? And this just relays your player monster status. Then I think your third option is to forfeit, right? Forfeit therefore sets fight equal to false. And then the while loop checks and you end the battle. But my other option here is first checking fight to false and then printing out you give up or you forfeit the fight. Forfeit the fight, right? And you don't earn anything this way. The battle ends. Battle ends. Battle therefore ends, and nothing is earned. Right? Then I guess after the player selects their stuff, skills 1, right? If we select skill 1, we execute skill 1. If we skill 2, we execute skill 2. If we select skill 3, we execute skill 3. And so this includes things like subtract HP, heal an HP, right? All the funny effects happen here. I think when we call the skill does what it does. It does what it needs to do. So after we do that, then that resolves this block here. So that resolves the player select options, right? So we do this. It should all be underneath this one select. You only select one thing each round. Well, each iteration of the loop, right? Then we do some if statements, right? So if player monster HP is 0, then we set fight is equal to false. We end the fight, right? And fight, and player loses. You lose, right? If enemy monster HP is 0, then we also set fight equal to false. And we end fight. Print you win. So actually, we already end the fight here, so that technically ends the fight. So we can just print out, just so you print out here. Yeah, something like this, right? And then we'll also like calculate win rewards. Calculate win rewards like maybe like money, right? Like money or EXP. If we ever do like calculate EXP, I guess. If there's something like that. Right now, there really isn't experience points. It's just training that you do, right? So maybe you can earn experience with your skills in combat. I'm not sure. That might be the case. Maybe so. Right? So that is going to be our combat loop. In which we would pit two monsters against each other. Each player takes well, no. The player takes their turn by selecting an action, right? And then once selecting an action for the monster. Okay. What else is there? Checking status does not end your turn. So in here, right, if this was just you select one thing, if I select status right now, it's like, okay, you select status, and we're gonna relay your status. Then it's going to check and it's going to check, which is fine if we do it like that. That's actually kind of fine. So we might not actually need this. So that's actually fine. So the catch here, I think the catch here is that once the player selects a monster skill to use, both monsters act here. So after we select our skills, we don't calculate, we don't execute just quite yet. No, we don't do that. We select the skills, and then what happens is, so if we once we select skills, then right, so I hit skill. So think about it like this. I have a button that says skills, and I have like three other buttons, right? One skill, one status, one forfeit. Think of it like Pokemon, except your run is replaced with a forfeit because there are no wild fights yet. We might add a run maybe if we add things like that. So when you hit the fight button, right, in Pokemon, you then open up to 4 moves. But in our case, we only have 3. So we have skills. It'll then ask you to select a skill, right? And then once you've selected a skill, Um, calculate monster turn order. We then calculate the monster turn order, right? So resolve selected, and then we resolve the selected skill. Um, and we resolve damage, right? Something like that. We'll resolve enemy skill, right? We resolve well no, that's sort of not exactly. It's there, but it's not quite. So we calculate the turn order and resolve player skill or enemy skill first, depending on turn order, right? Then we resolve the remaining. Then we resolve the remaining skill. So by calculating monster turn order, it's like, okay, so your speed is lower than your opponent's, so you go second, right? So we therefore resolve the enemy skill first, and then we resolve the remaining skill, which should be your skill. But if your speed is higher than your opponent and you move first, then we resolve player skill first, and then we resolve the remaining skill, which should be your enemy skill. There. So that's how it goes. Right, so when I take status, it'll just relay the play monster status, and then it'll do these extra checks, which honestly I don't think you need. Right? You don't need that. You put that in here. It's a little bit off. Yeah, like this, right? Actually, maybe I could go back one? Yeah. There. Because it's only when you initiate combat, like the actual, sorry, not initiate combat, when you initiate like an action and you like commit to that, then the monsters exchange something. But if you're like, okay, well, I just kind of want to do some other actions, then yeah, that's fine. Then after we resolve the skills, then HP is affected, so we have to check that. But otherwise, there's nothing we really need to check, so we don't need to have all of that there. Yeah, I think I like this. I like this a lot. And this means that we can go back and take a look at how skills work again. Now that we have a more logical process of the combat loop, literal combat loop, right? Different from what we fleshed out in the notepad, where we just kind of said, okay, I kind of want it this way. Now we're organizing it in a little bit more logical format for the computer to process here. Global, yeah. So what do we have here? So when we resolve a skill, right? So this is the big part. How do we resolve a skill, right? And I'll put that outside here. This is gonna be another block, right? should be resolved skill. How do we do that? How do we do that? So I'm thinking we check the ID, right? Check skill ID. Because the skill ID tells you what it should do. So you check the skill ID. And then based off the skill ID, we can, it's effects, right? Check skill ID, apply relevant skill effects to the action. With a relevant skill based off the skill ID, right? Based off the skill ID. After we apply our relevant skill effects to the action based off the skill ID, we can make more calculations, I think. So not I don't want to put that here. Use a skill. How do we use a skill? Oh, here. And so we resolve it after we apply our effects, right? Or yeah, reduce HP, increase HP. Oh, you know, I think I might have a. You notice how we only have hit points here, right? But we don't have a maximum hit point value. Is that okay? I think it's okay. That just actually means here. That only means that we need to, when we initialize player monster and their monster, right? We also need to make sure that max HP, right? So whatever your HP value is your max HP. That's player. That's how it goes. And the maximum hit points is only relevant in this instance because I think actually no. I have a better idea. Current hit points. Right? So our hit points here that you see in our monster, this right here, this index 0 is actually technically our max hit points. That doesn't change. Yeah, that's a value that doesn't change in combat. Because we have all of that. And so current HP is basically equal to just player HP, right? So it should be 0, right? That's index 0, or something like that. Of course, it's like, yeah, you know, it would be nice if I could just do Pmon.hp, because that makes sense, right? You know exactly what that is, you know what you're calling, but for the array, because it just makes things a little easier for me, I think. There might be a better way to do this. I could maybe go back and try, like, you set up monster and then you have, like, you give it HP, you give it attack, right? You give it defense, and you can call those, right? Then what you do here is, I think, see, I don't remember how I'm supposed to go about and say, well, just print out, give me, like, every single element, right? Or print out what I need, or get me that element. I'm gonna have to do something strange, like, what is it? Like, get name, right? I have to, like, grab the actual name. It could be, like, get stat, right? Get C stat. Would actually take in, like, a string? Which is, like, iffy when it comes to that. It's like, you have to take in a string because, like, you're getting in the name, right? You need the name, so we get the name. So we type in, like, get C stat defense, then that returns us a monster defense or something like that. It's a little messy, yeah. Or it would be like monster name, right? Because you have that, and so if we call defense, the name should be replaced there, but that gets iffy. So an array is just, I just know where everything is located. I just gotta know that this is what points to what. That's okay. That works. So declare monster current HP. We gotta make sure. It has to be the current HP that we're checking, right? I mean, yeah, so apply relevant skill effects. And then we resolve. That's fairly simple, honestly. So how do we apply, right? So how do we apply relevant effects? How does that work, right? I'm thinking a priority queue. Or, yeah, I'm thinking a priority queue. First in, first out. I know that sounds really weird. Okay? But hear me out. So what happens is, oh shoot, okay. Give me a moment. I need to think for a bit. I need to think this through. Serious, I need to, like, really think this through. Hold on. Okay, I think I got it. So, you know how skills have 3 characteristics, right? So the way this works is I'm not going to make a priority queue. I'm just going to make a stack. Doing a stack, right? First in, last out. That's what a stack is. And how this works is we calculate effects of characteristic 1, right? Then we add the effect to the stack, right? And then we repeat for each characteristic. Actually, I can therefore say repeat for each characteristic, and then I can do this. I can put that under that, so this is like a while loop, right? And what this does is make it so that the secondary and tertiary characteristics add on to the first characteristic. So say we had something like, say we had attack, sorry, say we had physical, fire, and heal, right? These are, I want to say, relatively separate effects. You're not going to see any synergy between them. Because what happens is, well, what effects does heal have, right? Our stat looks like this. Stat looks like this then. We add damage. With attack minus defense, right? Let's call that physical, right? Then we add damage. Let's say fire is based off of what stat do we have here? Magic, okay. Let's say M attack minus M defense, right? And then we have heal. We recover, whatever you call it. Let's call it recover, right? It's like HP plus. Self HP heal, right? Self HP plus. And in this order, since it's first and last out, what happens is 1, we recover, 2, we deal damage, and 3, we deal damage. Which, you notice, hey, that doesn't, I mean, yeah, there's synergy in that, you know, I'm dealing more damage and I'm healing myself, but you could do this in any order, and it wouldn't matter. So, why do we want to stack? That really doesn't make sense. I could just move through each effect, right? And then resolve them in order. Why do I want them to go backwards? Well, it all goes back into adding on to the first effect, right? Let's say we had maybe say we had a stack with damage, right? And instead of more damage, let's say we had actually yeah. So let me like pull up another example. I'm about what I'm thinking. So let's say we had physical we had poison, and then we had I want to say DOT, right? Damage over time. So what happens here, okay, this is where things get really cool, is you apply damage, and then you apply the poison. You apply poison, and you apply damage over time. So what happens here, I think, is we have a damage over time characteristic. But okay, and poison damage is I don't know how you would calculate that. Let's just say it's maybe like M attack minus M defense. So it's just like a different type of energy form, right? You might be going, hang on, why isn't poison like not inherently damage over time? Shouldn't that be like what poison is? You're right. Actually, let me change that then. So let's just call it poison. Poison is another word for damage over time then. Let's do it that way. And I'll actually keep fire in there. So now with this stack, you'll notice we have physical, fire, and poison. So we have damage over time. But damage over time alone doesn't do much. It's just damage over time. It's an effect that you have to apply to something. You have to add on to something else. Which is kind of strange. Like, why would you do that? Like, why can't it be, why can't poison just be poison damage over time, right? Why isn't it like, oh, well, you deal like some magic damage over time or something? Or you deal physical damage over time? Aha! That's where these modifiers get cool. So what happens is, magic damage. Magic damage is called afterwards. Now, since magic damage is called, so it waits for the damage, another damage type, to show up, right? Then what happens here is when I call magic damage over time is now applied to this. So now we have a fire poison combination that happens here. So fire is modified by poison. 3 physical damage, right? So just physical damage, right? Melee damage. This happens as per usual. Because poison is already applied to fire. The order does matter now in this case. Think about it like this, right? This setup order is like this order setup is like a poison, a burning strike, right? It's like a burning strike. You hit something with melee damage and you burn them, right? Fire and poison is like the burn combination. But you can do something like physical, poison, fire. Now this is a little strange because you're playing fire first. But you have poison damage over time in the form of physical damage. So it's like a constrict of sorts. I don't know how you would flavor that, but it's a nice sort of flavor, I think. Yeah, you can do all sorts of funny things, yeah. Well, I guess then the question here is like, actually no. So wait, if I have something like damage over time, I need to wait for another damage type to show up. Why is that? Why do I not call physical first, call fire, and then call poison, right? Like, I could just reverse the order here. And it would do the same thing if I did it that way. I mean, I guess think about it this way. Like, your first characteristic, that should be your primary characteristic, right? So, when you look at that, you're going, oh, it's a physical strike that also deals fire damage and that a little bit of poison. And that poison comes in the form of fire damage. Cool, right? Yeah, physical damage over time with a little bit of fire. So it's like, I don't know. Shining finger? I can come up with a decent imagery for that right now. Uh-oh. I'm creatively bankrupt? No, I'm just using a different part of my brain. Physical, yeah. Yeah, that's that. I think I'm content with that. So then, if we did it like the reverse way, right? Then we're looking at, okay, so you're primarily, right? Like if we were doing first in, first out, like a queue, then you would read poison. If we wanted to have the same effect, we would look at it like this, right? Oh, you're dealing poison damage. But you're also, you're dealing like some sort of damage over time that has a little bit of fire and a little bit of physical. Which might actually make sense because I want a big damage over time that combines both fire and physical. It's not an initial instance of damage, so that actually does make sense. Except that's not how it goes, because what happens here instead is I think I lost track. I lost track a little bit. Where was I? Right, so why not use a Q? Why not use a Q? Let's go through what a Q would look like then. Because the Q does the same thing, right? We would therefore apply poison. We would therefore apply fire. And we would therefore poison. Wait for the next damage type, right? And we went for fire, and then we apply a little bit of physical, right? That's how it works. So, same thing, but So we're envisioning it as like a primary poison with secondary fire and physical damage to it added onto it. That... Okay. But if we did stack, here's what would happen. See, now stack actually has a little bit of an issue. I mean, they both do, because I think this is more like of how I'm describing how poison works right now, this damage over time. So I'm going to actually have to change that to accommodate for how we're applying things. Because if we read this Q, blast first, so we deal physical damage, we deal fire damage, and we have poison, but there's nothing else to look at. Like everything else is resolved. So poison alone is now useless, which is strange. Maybe this might be too complicated, and I should just say, okay, so... Oh. No. No. I got it. Aha. We should use a Q. Okay. Let me explain why. So you'll notice... Wait, sorry, no, we should use a stack. My bad. Wait, no, I'm confusing myself now. Hold on. So what do I want to happen with effects that rely on another damage type to happen? Where do I want to put them so it makes sense? Right? An effect that relies on either something that happens before or after it. Because when you look at this, right, this is a poison skill that deals fire and physical damage. So it's like a combination poison. This is a physical skill that also deals fire and some sort of poison. I guess if that's the case, that actually doesn't make sense. So that's one way of reading it, I think. Okay. I see. Oh, hello there. Hi. Oh. Where was I? Right. We were just talking about the order of how skills should be read. So, if we take a look at this, we have this is our first characteristic, this is our second characteristic, and this is our third characteristic. So, when we take a look at that, we have a physical skill that reads in, well, that also deals a little bit of fire and deals poison damage, but like, we call it damage, it's a damage over time effect, right? But we don't know, like, what type of damage the poison is, strangely enough, so this actually reads out to be useless. But if we read it this way, this is what happens if we read the stack. We read backwards, right? So we're actually dealing poisonous physical damage. That's weird when you read it like that. But it's not poisonous fire, it's poisonous physical. But if you read it in order, you're going, okay, I'm dealing physical damage, and I'm also adding poison damage onto that with the fire type. But then we aren't actually adding on to the first characteristic, you see. Because the physical is just physical. Now, I guess that sort of makes sense, because it's just the damage. I mean, there's nothing, like, special about it. But when we talk about something a little bit more technical, like poison damage, that requires another damage type to define what type of damage it will poison over time, then you have certain deals like this. Now, the interesting thing happens here is that this does apply when we try Poison Fire Physical, right? Because what I kind of want this to do is it says, okay, well, this is the poison attack, and we're adding fire and physical damage onto that poison. So if that's the case, how is physical a damage over time? Well, so physical itself is not a damage over time. It's just a straightforward characteristic of attack minus defense equals damage. That's how I'm calculating it right now. But you might see like percentages, like, oh, it's actually 50% of our defense, right? And then you might multiply all of this, you might multiply the damage by like 1 plus 100, wait no, 1 plus, what is it? 1, oh right, 1 plus, training, oh, experience over 100, you get like a double if you max out your skill, or what, double damage if you max out your skill. But point is, it's just one damage type. But poison is what makes the skill a damage over time skill. Because with poison, I'm now saying that my skill now deals damage over time. But because of the way I've defined poison as simply damage over time, it doesn't know, we don't know what damage the poison type actually inflicts until we take a look at the other characteristics off of the skill. And so now what I'm addressing is how we read that skill in order to get various different effects depending on the combination, the order, if you will. So ideally, right, when you read through this, I want a poison type skill that deals fire and physical damage over time, because that comes afterwards. So I'm guessing if we do it this way, right. I got it now. So what we want to do here is, we do want a stack, but instead of poison reading another damage to show up, poison should read for damages that have already shown up, and then adjust that. So damage over time. So I'm going to erase all of this. We're going to use, and in that case, yes, we do want to use the queue. We do want to use the stack. Because if we use the queue, then we have to read damage types that show up afterwards. which in calculation is a little weird because you're still waiting for something, right? There's a little bit of a buffer time, and I don't think I want that to happen. I want things to resolve instantly as soon as possible. So what happens here is we're going to have a queue, and I'm going to say poison. I'm going to say poison, right? So I'm dealing a physical damage. I'm dealing a one-time attack, right? One-time physical damage attack. That also includes a poison damage. Well, that also includes a poison damage over time of fire damage. That's a mouthful. That deals some sort of damage over time, right? And that damage over time is a fire type damage over time. Which means if we read through this, we read magic damage, right? And now we read damage over time. We look at the previously calculated damage and adjust that to become damage. A damage over time type. Which I think it makes more sense now, you see? So this order step is still like a burning strike. What happens here is, say we calculate magic damage, right? So it's like fire damage is equal to, let's say 100, right? And then we look at poison. Poison DOT looks at fire damage. And then we want to adjust that, right? To maybe like over 4 turns, right? 24 damage. Like 25 damage over 4 turns, right? Something like that. Or you might go ahead and say poison damage is actually really good because you get like over 5 turns, right? So you actually get like a 25 damage increase if you delay your combat long enough. So it's actually beneficial to throw in poison damage, or else like nobody would ever do it, right? Or you could say, divide by 2, it deals 50 damage over 3 turns. That's, a 50% damage increase. That's more lucrative, actually. It makes more sense. I would put that on there. 25 is okay, but like, when you can, stack characteristics, like, why don't I just double up on physical, right? It's like, why don't you do that? Well, then, you have to look at this, and you have to go, okay, wait. But, if I stack not only a fire damage before it, right? Let's say physical damage is also equal to 100. Like, okay, cool. Right? So we now deal poison damage. Result, right? The result is physical is 100. Physical plus 50 fire. For 3 turns, right? That's how it looks, right? Now, here's the fun part. You can also go, well, why don't I rearrange this and go poison, fire, physical? And if I do that, then I can actually, with this, like, sort of general math output, we're going to look at fire damage and physical damage, right? So our damage total tally is 200. then we divide that by 2 for 100, and we deal it over 3 turns, which is like a 50% increase, right? It's 300, and so if we like replace poison damage over time with like another 100 damage move, it's the same thing. The numbers check out. So you might actually consider like maybe, okay, why don't I buff poison a little bit more so that the damage output is ideal. Yes, poison itself doesn't have damage. Poison is reliant on the damage types that show up after it. Which is why order matters, right? It makes it so that the secondary and tertiary characteristics add on to the first characteristic. Or in our case, it's just the tertiary adding on to the secondary because the primary is sort of a stand-alone, right? You can also do... Yeah, this is getting good. You can also do things like maybe poison heal, which is, instead of a damage over time, it's actually a heal over time, which is kind of strange, right? I'm not sure if you want to inflict that onto your opponent, because poison does change... Wait, does poison actually change the target? And should heal actually be, stealth? Heal normally targets yourself, not your opponent. But if I change this skill setup so that you have to specify that you're targeting yourself, then healing actually takes a debuff. Well, healing is actually quite nerfed. Because you're always taking up one extra slot to one extra characteristic to heal yourself. Unless you have effects like life drain and whatnot. Then that also becomes a question of like... Do I want a drain characteristic? What does that entail, right? All sorts of things. And then again, like, if I'm doing Drain, then Drain would sort of be a characteristic similar to Poison, where it relies on the following damage types. Okay, now see here, like, this becomes a little bit of a headache when you go in and you're like, well, why doesn't... Yeah, when you go in for the first time and you play the game and it's not dummy-proof because you decided to put Poison at the very end of your skills when you build your monster, because you're like, yeah, you know, I think poison would be cool. I'm already dealing plenty of damage with physical and fire, but then, you know, you look at it and you're like, poison's not doing anything. How come? Well, it's not dummy proof because poison is reading something that doesn't come before it. It's 0. Your damage value is 0, so your poison damage ends up being 0, and then you calculate your fire, and then your physical. And it's like, well, why even bother, right? So, if we really want to dummy-proof this, then you would say that certain characteristics can only be applied to certain slots, right? Poison is either in your first or second, but never your third slot, because it doesn't do anything in your third slot, it's just useless. But I think it would be funny to be able to, like, build a useless move. It's like, wow, that looks really cool. What does it do? Oh, it does absolutely nothing. But it looks so cool. It's just a flashy move, right? Something like you stack 3 different effects that require you to do something silly. Well, actually, there might be a use for poison at the 3rd slot. There might be. Maybe. I'm thinking something interesting, because you could do something like what if we said physical, reckless, and poison? Well, that Reckless does, right? What I'm thinking here is that, let's say Reckless is an effect that doubles your damage output. Well, it increases your damage output, but you take recoil, right? It's damage plus recoil. It's a damage increase, but it doesn't have a damage type, see? That's why we have things like physical to call damage to calculate damage types. But if we take a look at Reckless here, then let's say we deal 0 poison damage, and then Reckless looks at a previous damage type, and it goes, oh, well, that's 0. There might be some synergy you could maybe do with that. I'm not sure how that actually works right now. I'm just thinking of, like, what if you stack things like poison on top of poison, or things that are reliant on a damage type, but nothing happens, right? Because it's 0. So any damage increase is probably, like, linear, and the recoil just doesn't happen. Yeah. See, now that's also a strange thing, because when you build your first move, right, it's going to be something like physical or fire, so that's going to be the first thing in there. So we go, okay, I want a secondary damage type. Well, sorry, not a secondary characteristic. You know, maybe you might be going, okay, hang on, you know, what if I added something like Reckless or Poison, right? What happens then? Well, then you use it, you put it in the secondary slot, and nothing happens. And you've already trained the first slot. So it's like, that's useless. I just wasted a whole bunch of resources. So the other option is to actually say order doesn't matter. Some characteristics just affect the entire skill, right? Poison effectively turns your entire skill into damage over time. You don't get like a split where I deal partial physical and partial fire DOT. It's just all poison, it's just all or nothing. That might be the case. That might have to be the case. And same thing with like Reckless, right? It's like, how do you do that? That's so, yeah, it's so strange. I'll have to think about that. I want to think about this a little bit more. I really gotta think. So like, how should order even be a question, right? Well, I want it to be an option. I really want it to be an option. But it's proving to be difficult. So, the stack sort of, well, it's not sort of, it does work. I'm content with, no, I wouldn't say content. I think it's okay. But, if I said no order, right? How would I approach the no order required? Well, I would still have to redo the skill somehow, right? There has to be, there's still a reading order somewhere. Which means the skill would sort of need a like reading priority then, which I don't want to put. That's like extra work on me, because I would have to go, okay, so we have like types like poison and reckless. have to be applied after damage, right? Which means you have like a priority of 1, and we're actually gonna go in reverse priority. So, well, actually no. Oh, no. We just have like a hierarchy of order, right? And we have physical and fire at 0. So 0 goes before 1, right? You calculate all your zeros, right? You calculate all your 0 type characteristics, and then you calculate all your 1 type characteristics afterwards. Because that's how you get the most damage out of it. And that is a lot more complicated than just throwing things into a stack. So I'm just going to throw things into a stack, and we're gonna like it. Which means this is definitely going to be jank. Now, yes, the question is, if I want a pure poison type, or if I want a pure reckless type, then yeah, I might do. Oh wait, no. The other way, right? The other way to do this is to say it's a Q, right? Just remember, we do the Q, right? It's gonna be well, physical damage. Let's say damage, and that's set it to 100, right? And reckless damage multiplied by 2. Now we get 200, right? And then we apply poison. Damage now is 200 over 2 over 3 turns, right? Something like that, right? Reckless, and we also add, let's say 100 times 20% recoil. Equals 40 damage, 40 recoil. Something like that. So that is an option, right? That is an option. So a Q does work in this case. So you're dealing a physical damage type that's also you're dealing a reckless physical damage that all gets condensed to poison. See, like, poison is now the big thing. You're actually dealing poison damage. It's all condensed and closed in damage over time. So I guess it actually might depend on the effect, right? I think it'll depend on the effect. So depending on the effect, you have effects that apply to what comes before them, and you have effects that apply to what come after them. Maybe. Cause like, it makes sense that you have physical and you add reckless onto that. But it doesn't make sense if you have like reckless, like, okay, I'm dealing a reckless action and it has physical. Actually, no, you can read it that way too. That also makes sense. But still, it's like, yeah, you know, I think this is okay. That's fine. That's just gonna be like a little characteristic of the game. Effects apply to things that come after it. Or, no, do I want that to happen, or do I want it to come before? Oh my goodness. Okay, it has to be one or the other. Because, if things come after, then I have to look backwards. I have to wait for something to happen. And that means, hang on. I actually. No, that would take a lot of processing power. What I was thinking in my head was, let's say we had physical, fire, and poison, right? And what happens is we take a look at the priority, right? So we iterate through all the characteristics. So we go, okay, so our damage types, physical and fire, we calculate those first, right? So it's like, okay, and I'll just highlight. So it's like, okay, we have physical, right? And then we have fire, and we have poison. What happens is we go through each we go through the characteristics. So we look at fire first because that's the first thing on the list, right? Oh, sorry, we look at physical first. Like, oh, what is physical? Okay, it's a priority 0. It's a characteristic that increases damage. It's a base damage type. So we add damage. Okay, cool. We do that, and then we take it off. We take it out the list, right? We remove it because we don't need it anymore. We've already resolved that. Nothing extra happens. And we take a look at fire. It's like, oh, okay, that's fire. It's another damage type. We can add that to the list. Sorry, we can add that to the damage then. We can add that to the value, and nothing special needs to be done, right? So we calculate that, and we remove it. And it's like, okay, poison is left, right? What is it? It's a priority. Is it priority 0? No, it's not priority 0. And it's like, okay, we've hit the end of our list, which means we've checked for all priority 0 skills, characteristics. Now we go through it and we look for priority 1 characteristics. So it's like, oh, poison. Okay. Now we apply poison to everything. See, now that still gets into the issue of like, oh, well, poison now has to apply to everything. You can't, like, leave it alone, right? So that's all kind of a, well, you're gonna have to play to, like, how the game organizes itself, right? At that point. And let's say, yeah, we look at, like, physical and reckless, right? And poison. Like, okay, physical, right? Okay, cool, that's damage. Done. Priority 0. Reckless? No, that's not priority 0. Poison? That's not priority 0. Okay. Alright, we go back again. Priority 1. Okay, cool, reckless. We add to the damage. Poison. Okay, and we remove it, yeah. Poison. Okay, we apply that as well. Priority 1, right? We already have damage calculated. So, it all comes down to how you're gonna play with it, right? I'm thinking, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, I'm gonna go and keep how this stack works. That's just how it's gonna be. It's gonna be really weird. And maybe like, I hope it's not too difficult to navigate. I hope that is understandable, but I guess there sort of needs to be, it's not dummy proof. See, that's the issue. It's not exactly dummy proof. And people are going to wonder, hey, why is my secondary or tertiary characteristic working? Because in reality, it's not actually applying to the first characteristic. Actually, wait. Then it's the opposite then. Crap. Well, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, see, because if you had poison at the front, or if you had things like reckless at the front, then all your other type characteristics are going to actually affect the first characteristic, because the first characteristic will look at what happens after, look at what happens in its second and third. But if you just have things like physical, then it's just a damage type and nothing happens. Is that okay? I think that should be okay, right? Oh, do I, yeah, do I want a queue or do I want a stack? Because it would still be really weird if I put poison at the very end, right? For it to get maximum poison damage. But it would also be weird to say, I'm going to stack poison, poison, and then fire, dealing like double poison fire damage. Now, what double poison, poison looks like is, that is actually kind of nasty though, if you think about it. Because if we look at it like this, right? Let's say we were still using the stack. I guess it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, stack or queue, or either reading forwards to backwards or backwards to forwards. So, like one way or the other, it's going. You're still gonna. It's still not W proof, right? If I really want to W proof it, I'm going to have to do priority stuff. So I'm just gonna do stack. I just like it better that way. So let's say we have a stack, right? And we have, so fire happens first. So let's set damage. Let's say we deal like 100 damage, right? We calculate that. Poison. Right? Damage over 2 for 3 turns. So that's 150 over 3 turns, right? But then I apply poison again, which is 50 over 2 equals 25 for 6 turns. Should it be 6 turns? How does that look, actually? What does that look like? That's not good. That's pretty bad. Because, 25 times 6 is the same as 50 times 3. So you can't actually double down on, like, poison lasting longer. Now the only way you could do this is if it was like 3 times 3, right? So it's more like 1 times 3. And 3 times 3. So that's how it would last normally, right? And well, but scoring that is also a little bit deadly too. And another thing is, you don't really see combat lasting for 9 whole turns in a turn-based game, right? That's kind of long, especially if we use like Pokemon standards. Like an exchange for a Pokemon to faint maybe lasts like 4 moves if you're like really heavy. Especially with things like super effectives and checks and all that. But hey, 25 times 9 is now 225. So we've effectively done a 1.5 times 1.5 multiplier, which is kind of what I wanted in the first place. Yeah, you are getting your money's worth off of that. I mean, it's a viable strategy. It's a viable strategy. I guess. Does this make sense? I think it makes sense. So it has to be a stack though. Why? I don't know. Maybe I could probably do a queue. But in terms of data structures, right? First in, last out is a lot easier to implement instead of first in, first out. And since we're effectively doing the same thing, just in a different format, I will take the easy way out. I will use the bare minimum of what is required here, and it will work. So that is our logic for how I think we calculate things, right? And then I guess the next issue here is, well, sure, we have our skill logic and our skill effects in global, but they are reliant on, oh, they're reliant on you taking two monster types and then calculating that. So if I were to actually program something here, start coding instead of doing something silly, the logic to do the check would have to be well, we have a damage, right? Well, I guess I'll just do this in this common block. It's not gonna be syntactically syntactically solid, but I'll make it somewhat logical. So yeah, we set our damage, right? We need a damage variable. For now, I'm gonna put that there, but we can condense that. We might not, I don't think we actually need to do that. Maybe. And so, actually, let's say, yeah, physical. Let's say what physical calculates some damage, right? So we take damage and we go ahead and go, damage is equal to E1. Say index 1 is the attack, minus E1, which is any monster, minus 2, which is defense. Oh, okay. That is easy then. So in our case, we can return an integer, right? And so this returns attack minus defense. That's quite straightforward. So when we call physical, we call this effect, right? This is the physical effect. It returns you a damage value. And I guess we just have a global external enemy monster that we just overwrite its values each time we need to go ahead and use it. Or hear me out. Well, actually, yeah, that's a lot easier to work with. Because I'm thinking, okay, you know, if I had preset monsters that I could, instead of, you know, rewriting stats all the time, I mean, since they're already written in, basically hard-coded, I could just I could point to the monster. Alright, I could point to the stats. I could point to the numbers there. Because those don't change. But if I really want to make it a little bit more flexible, yeah, we're gonna have this external monster called Emon as well. This is for battle, right? That's the enemy monster, right? Enemy monster for combat. I don't like that you can access it and everywhere else because it's global, right? So for me, it's not a problem, but it's very like not safe in terms of like I don't think you call it security, but it's sort of in that vein, right? Like, oh, it's a global variable. Anybody can edit the enemy monster pretty easily. It should only happen in battle because you're only really initializing the enemy monster there. That's the only place you really need it to exist, right? You don't need it to take up whatever like variable memory, whatever like whatever extra stuff you have here all the time. It doesn't need to sit there. I mean, sure, it's like not too much data, but like it's still plenty of a little bit of data. It's like an extra monster. So like, where does emo come into play then? Like, how do you know it's a monster? Well, I guess when we're calling that right, we need to take in a monster, right? So we're gonna take in a monster. Or this is what we're gonna call, right? So this is gonna be like the effect. And then it's probably we want to call some stats. Something like, yeah, okay. So we take in 2 monster types. And we return the calculations that way. Yeah, that way. Okay, this way, when we put things into the stack, then we're going to, I think, have to, when we calculate the monster turn order, that's going to already read in those numbers, those monsters. Or, the while loop could also already have them. Either way, if we define it like that, then we should be okay then. That should work as intended. Yeah. Yeah. So, this way I can just throw in anything I want, or anything I need really. So this calculates an enemy. Yes. Then, if I want something like heal, right? All I need to do is just take in like heal, right? So heal only requires you because you're only healing yourself. And then it returns a heal value, which is, I think, say it's your magical minus your magical defense, your magical attack minus your magical defense, something like that. If we do it like that, then we just kind of have a value though. It only returns a value, it doesn't actually adjust your stats. It doesn't change anything. Yet. Because this is simply an effect that returns the value. Right? What you have to do is you have to go into battle. You resolve the skills by calculating the effects and having them all together, right? And then resolving them. That's where you go, okay, HP minus damage, right? Right here. So in this case, when we use a skill, we initialize, I think, we want a damage. We just want a int damage variable now, right? And this just gets reused over and over for all of these calculations. I like that. I like that. With things like damage over time might be... That's gonna be a little bit more complex to calculate, I think. I guess we also need another stack then, huh? Wait a minute. What? What if? Okay. What if we have, what do you call it? Poison damage. Sorry, not poison damage, reckless damage. Sorry, I'm trying to... I am processing. Not his processing. Okay. So, we have a stack of effects, right? And, how is damage calculated, right? We have a stack of effects. So when we have poison, we put poison into the stack. We put poison damage into the stack, right? And let's say it's like a fire type damage. And then I guess we also need a counter, right? Of like 3 turns. So when we do that, and we inflict a poison attack onto somebody, this is what it looks like. So not only do we have a stack to actually calculate the damage here, we also have a stack to do this. Wait a second, okay. That's a little too complicated for me. I think what we want to do here is, let's say like, we have a physical damage, right? And then this lasts 1 turn, right? Or 0 turns. I guess it depends. Zero or 1, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know it's just a 1 turn thing, right? So with this, what happens is I first deal physical damage, and then I deal my poison damage, right? Because it's last in, first out, first in, last out, last in, first out. First and last, it's last in. First, last in, first. That's a better way of putting it. Yeah. Which is equivalent to, what is it here? Physical, fire, poison, right? This thing right here. This is the equivalent of what we're looking at right now. And this is what I want to see when I'm done with it, right? And then after I see this, I apply everything. And so after I apply everything, right? Then this is what you're looking at, right? After one turn, this is empty now. Now what you can do here is stack it, right? So let's say you use the same move again. This is before resolves. After one turn, right? And this is new action. So you could do something like this. But that means I need a way to separate, right? Things like, oh, this has multiple turns. And oh, this is only a one turn effect, right? So, if that's the case, then what happens here is a little different. Because now what might happen is, let's say we have empty stack, right? An empty stack of effects. And then we add fire, right? So now it has fire. Let's say it's like 100 damage. One turn. Right? And then we're gonna add poison. But where does poison go? Well, poison looks at this and it goes, okay, well, I can change the damage and multiply the turn by 3. Right? That makes sense. So we cut the damage in 2, multiply by 3. And then we have physical, right? And so what happens here is we look at this and we go, okay, we add physical onto the stack. It's like 100 damage, one turn. Aha! Okay. Now, we can have a different order. Right? And we're saying that if poison comes here, it's at the very first thing. It then applies to everything else that comes after it. Which means if we do physical here, then we actually get add a physical here, right? And fire remains at 100 and one turn. But when we apply poison afterwards, what happens is it applies to everything on the stack. Aha! Ah! There we go. That makes sense. I like that. Yes. So if that's the case, then yes. Poison does have to come first or second in order for its effects to resolve, just because of how we're reading it backwards? Yeah. So we're actually using like two stacks to read this, which is kind of weird. Um, maybe, maybe we might, instead of using a queue or anything, maybe I just might read it in order, you know? What's wrong with going, okay, so for effect and skill, you want, okay, physical, you add physical, okay, you add fire, right? To the empty stack of effects. And it's like, oh, you want, okay, so poison, okay, poison applies to everything now. Now, well, okay, now another thing here is that, there's a catch. And, that's, if we have this, we want to add something new, we're still using the same stack. So if I actually apply poison, like, just raw poison, then that's going to affect everything in here that already exists. And I want to make sure it only affects like the new things that I add in there. So that's going to be another problem for a future knot. Because I think that will be all for today. We have, I mean, it's not exactly programming, but it's fleshing out our logic a little bit better for the design here. I'm starting to like this a lot. It's all, this is like, I suppose it's still mostly framework. It's all framework, but it's good framework. This is the stuff for battle. Yes, this is nice. Doesn't this look quite nice? Oh, quite nice. Monster. Here's everything. Yeah. So once I do get this up and running soon, let's leave a last comment then. Make sure new effects only apply to those related. Yeah. Right. If you story turns no, that's necessary. It's really necessary. Yeah. Okay. Yep. This is very satisfying. Okay. Yeah. That will be all for today. Thank you for watching. I've been your host, Not, and wherever you are, have a good rest of your day. おつのでした。